We have tried collectively between the two of us a number of jury trials. I had to start with that quote today about get in and get out on cross and how Todd Blanche has been going for more than 7 hours now. Can you even remember, Barb, what has actually landed in terms of a fatal blow at all through Michael Cohen's cross-examination?
Yes, it seems that Todd Blanche has partaken in what I call rookie mistakes. That is, going on too long, not having a specific plan, and asking one question too many. And so, you know, as you've suggested, Katie, the strategy of an effective cross-examination is pick out a few key areas of impeachment, contradiction, or getting the witness to agree with helpful points, and be laser focused on those things so that the jury can follow along. Now, it may be that one of the things Todd Blanche is trying to do here is to exhaust Michael Cohen, because that can be a strategy, wear them down so that they kind of lose their guard and admit to things they might not otherwise admit to. But I don't think that Michael Cohen is going to, you know, get on the stand and confess, you know what, Todd Blanche, you're right. It's all me. I made it all up. And so that's where I come back to this idea of the one question too many. What you want to do on cross-examination is just get the facts out and then use those facts in your own argument on closing argument. And instead, Todd Blanche seems to be going on and trying to get Michael Cohen to admit to lies. Just point out the contradiction, and then you can use it yourself. But of course, these are all about the strategy, the process, and critiquing Todd Blanche as a lawyer. I think the real arbiters of all of this will be the jury. And I think that if you are more focused on the key factors, that can be more persuasive with the jury. At the end of the day, having seen a lot of cross-examination of cooperating witnesses, I haven't seen anything here that was unexpected, and that I'm sure the Manhattan District Attorney's Office also had expected before even going into this case.
Yeah, and Anna, of course, the perfect teeing up to you for the next question, which is maybe the defense is trying, to Barb's point, to exhaust Michael Cohen, but the jury is at risk of being exhausted by this. You've been inside the courtroom since day one. I have seen you there multiple times myself. Talk about whether or not the jury looks like they're actually interested in anything that's coming out from the cross. I do know there's been a little bit of a kind of tennis match, kind of back and forth attention, but I mean, 7+ hours is a long time for a jury to sit there, even if they're taking notes.
Yeah, Katie, you're right. They have been very engaged throughout the case. They have kind of looked like they've been watching a tennis match, moving their heads back and forth as they listen to questions. But I did notice that as Todd Blanche got into that second day of cross-examination, where he was going over and over again with these subjects that he's already been over, he had a very kind of disjointed, disorganized cross-examination with no clear themes or chapters to it. And that was the first time that I really started to notice that there were several jurors who looked like they were downright bored. Some of them maybe even nodding off. I don't know if that is what in fact was happening, but it did seem like that was the first time that they seemed to lose interest. It wasn't until about 20 minutes before the lunch break that Todd Blanche got around to a more substantive point in which he was attacking Michael Cohen's recollection of events, and he was focusing on these phone calls that Michael Cohen said that he had with Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, about the Stormy Daniels matter. It wasn't until then that the jurors seemed to pick back up and become interested again. But again, it was pretty poor timing on Todd Blanche's part, because all of this happened right before the lunch break. And so he didn't really get to carry that momentum into the afternoon session, which is when he finally got around to the substance of the case.
Barb, we've heard from the prosecution that Michael Cohen will be the last witness called in their case in chief. Do you think there was some type of strategic error that we're not going to hear from Allen Weisselberg or Keith Schiller or maybe another witness?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things about that. Number one, I never wanted to end or start with a cooperator because they have issues, and they know that going in. I always wanted to start and end on a high note. Now, they'll get a chance to do a redirect on Michael Cohen and emphasize some of the key things of his testimony, so maybe they consider that to be a high note. But I always wanted kind of a safe witness at the end, somebody who could finish strong. I also, to your point about Keith Schiller and Allen Weisselberg, I do think the jury is going to wonder where they were. both of these witnesses are in a position to share information that could confirm the story that Michael Cohen is telling them. And I think they're going to wonder. Now, of course, the jury will be instructed that you should not consider the guilt or innocence of anybody else in deciding whether this defendant who's on trial is guilty. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that are kept from a jury, and they have to just sort of do the best they can with the information they have in front of them. I myself wonder why they weren't called. You know, I think both are likely to invoke their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. But of course, the prosecution has the power of immunizing them. Maybe they're still worried that they're going to say things that are helpful to Donald Trump, or even perjure themselves if they are speculating along those lines. And of course, their goal is to convict Donald Trump, not to prosecute someone else for perjury. So it's risky, but all of those things are strategic choices that prosecutors have to make when assessing the pros and cons of calling particular witnesses.